The beauty of Android is that not all Android skins are made equal, and depending on what Android phone you get, you could have a slightly different experience to somebody else that also buys an Android phone, and we love this, but it got us thinking, what are some of the best and some of the worst Android skins out there? This isn't a definitive ranking by any means, but we took a couple of several factors into account when ranking these Android overlays, and we've got a list of 11 to pick from. And let's start right at the bottom of that list where nobody wants to be, and it's bad news for Tecno and iOS. Tecno might now be a number 5 player globally, but iOS is the worst Android skin in our ranking, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One of these is just due to its aesthetic. It's very similar to MIUI or iOS. It has separate drop downs for notification and quick toggles, which I still don't understand why that's a thing. And there's plenty of obscure bloatware that you just don't want on your phone. And what makes that worse is that after you're done booting up the phone, you're forced to install even more bloatware. And last year's Tecno Phantom V Fold even shipped with a forum app that displayed NSFW images. There aren't even a ton of features inside iOS, but there is a plump butt feature inside the camera app if that's something you're after. What cements this in last place though is that Tecno only promised up to 2 major OS upgrades and 3 years of security patches, and that's for its high-end phones. That's basically the bare minimum, and that is why in last place it is Tecno with iOS. Not much higher up the rankings though, at number 10 is Xiaomi and MIUI. If this ranking was purely about functionality, then Xiaomi's MIUI and HyperOS would definitely be in the top 3 between per-app volume controls, slick gallery features, and shutdown confirmation, which even requires a pin to turn off the device. Unfortunately though, there are better skins out there. The biggest issue with MIUI and HyperOS is just the amount of bloatware and ads. Making matters worse is that Xiaomi doesn't actually make it easy to disable these system ads in the first place. The good news is that you can delete a lot of the bloatware and disable those notifications, but that's just a lot of effort, and it's something that we don't want to do in the first place. Another issue with Xiaomi software is the iOS-inspired look and feel with, again, the split notification shade and quick settings menu. You will get 4 major OS updates and 5 years of security patches on its flagship phones, but even then, Samsung's mid-tier A series still beats the Redmi line for its updates. And that's why Xiaomi is at number 10. It was a tough pick for number 9, but this honour goes to Honor with Magic OS. Honor's Magic OS software fails to really stand out from the crowd, and again, it kind of looks a little Apple iOS inspired. The skin does bring a good variety of features, but then there's also some gimmicky additions like air gestures, AI app recommendations, and Yo-Yo Assistant, which you might have never even heard of. There's some Apple inspired features here, so Magic Capsule you might have seen before because it looks a lot like Dynamic Island, and again, bloatware. The update policy for Honor's flagship phones isn't great either. They only ship with 3 years of OS updates and 5 years of security patches, and even rivals like Xiaomi and OnePlus do a little better than that. Magic OS does bring some eye protection features, text extraction capabilities, and Magic Portal features as well to share quickly between apps, but Honor needs to learn sometimes it's okay to say no to a feature and not just throw in every single idea that someone has come up with. At number 8 in the list is Vivo and FunTouch OS. FunTouch OS used to be a pretty bad Android skin, but Vivo's software has made some major improvements in the last couple of years. One of the main reasons for this being at number 8 is just that the skin is largely inoffensive and a bit drab rather than exciting. The aesthetic is just similar to stock Android in many places, such as the app drawer and those home screens. FunTouch does bring great performance, a good camera app, and a healthy list of features, although it's not quite on par with HyperOS or ColorOS in terms of the latter. One of the biggest issues with FunOS though is, you might have gathered this by now, there's a lot of apps that are already pre-installed which you have to spend time to go and uninstall, and that just puts anything at the bottom of the list. Vivo phones top out at just 3 major OS updates and 4 years of security patches, and even Honor beats it in this regard. Again, it's inoffensive and just an okay experience, and it's never going to make you say wow, so that's why it's at number 8. At number 7, just midway in the list, is ASUS and Zen UI. Zen UI's made some good improvements over the last few years, ditching the bloated, visually horrid approach in favor of a relatively clean, stock-like experience, which is something I really like. You're not going to get a lot of features here though, although the ability to choose your quick settings tile style is really a nice welcome addition. ASUS on its latest Zenfone 11 Ultra has some trendy AI features like audio recorder summaries and call translations, which when they've been used, they work pretty well. The biggest issue though with ASUS is its update policy. You're only going to get 2 years of major OS updates and 4 years of security updates, and that's why it sits so low in our list at number 7. ASUS, you've got to do a bit better. At number 6 is Motorola and Hello UI. Motorola used to have one of the best software overlays in the game, and Hello UI still delivers a pretty decent experience in 2024. This effectively feels like pure Android with a few tweaks here and there. This skin maintains features like chopping your hand for the flashlight, which is kind of cool, but also introduced new additions in recent years like ready for desktop mode, spot color camera functionality, and Google's own Material You customizations. The foldables even outdo Samsung when it comes to the cover screen functionality, which at this point is not too hard. What's holding this back though, like many on the list, is its update policy. On its budget phones, you'll get just 1 major OS update, but on its more flagship devices, you're going to get 3 years of major OS updates. And on those budget phones, you do get a lot of ads and recommendations, which just isn't nice, and that's why it sits at number 6. Number 5 is Sony and Xperia UI. Kind of similar to Motorola, Sony's Android skin builds features on top of stock Android rather than offering a full-blown overhaul, which I much prefer. So you get a much more lightweight Android skin for those Xperia phones. Sony's Android skin does bring you an almost unparalleled variety of media and camera features to its high-end phones. This includes PlayStation Remote and loads of advanced photo and camera controls in the camera app, and also a video creator app. However, there's not as much general features and customization that you see in the likes of One UI, and it is a little bit disappointing. The Xperia UI does also ship with a few bloatware apps, and although it's not as bad as some on this list, we still don't like bloatware. The biggest problem though with Xperia UI is Sony's frankly pathetic update policy by only giving you 2 major OS updates, and when you pay $1,400 for a phone, you at least want that to, I don't know, maybe be 3 years of updates. So that's why Sony is at number 5 on the list. Nothing is worse than missing out on the top 3 of a best to worst list, but this is where Nothing OS sits at number 4. Let's just start by saying it's a huge achievement for Nothing to be in the top 5 after only being around for a few years. Most good Android skins require a couple of years just to make sure they get it right, but Nothing have got it spot on. The best thing about Nothing OS is that it's distinctive. It uses heavy use of monochrome colors, dot matrix effects in places, and a few really cool widgets, and you know this is Nothing OS even from a distance. Let's just say if this was based on looks alone, then Nothing would be right at the top of this list. One thing that we really like about Nothing software is it brings plenty of visual customization options, as well as being able to customize the glyphs on the back of the phone. It also doesn't hurt that there's little in the way of bloatware here. Good job, Nothing. The biggest downside to Nothing OS here though is its features. Nothing Phone 2 owners get stuff like ChatGPT integration, app blocker functionality, and clone apps, but it lags behind pretty much every other major OEM. Nothing does promise 3 major OS updates and 4 years of security patches for its top flight phones, but that's still a long way off OnePlus and OPPO, let alone the top dogs Google and Samsung. In at number 3 is OPPO and Color OS. OPPO's Android skin, which is the basis for Oxygen OS on OnePlus and Realme UI on Realme devices, is the best Android software from a Chinese smartphone brand in our book. This includes changing the shape of quick setting tiles, tweaking system colors and icon name sizes, and the ability to adjust the speed of app launching and closing animations. We love this. There's also plenty of useful everyday features as well, such as image clipper, auto pixelization of sensitive info, and some really cool AI features like web page summaries and object erasing. Like every skin on this list though, OPPO isn't without its flaws. The sheer amount of bloatware and recommendations in some cases, and this is usually restricted to the Realme UI in a lot of the markets, but we noticed some bloatware recommendations setting up the OnePlus 12 and OnePlus Open as well. Update wise, you're getting 4 4 years of major OS updates and 5 years of security patches, which we're a big fan of, and that's why OPPO and ColorOS sits at number 3. It was always going to be a battle for the two names that we haven't mentioned yet, Google and Samsung. So, missing out on top spot and sitting at number 2 is Samsung and One UI. There's no surprise that Samsung sits so high on the list, and the sheer amount of features that One UI gives you, we absolutely love. You have DeX, Samsung's expert RAW camera app, lock screen widgets, Bixby routines if you still use Bixby, and Samsung also brought a ton of Galaxy AI features to recent phones, covering everything from web page summaries and generative AI editing and even live translation in calls. There's just more than enough here. In addition to all that customization, Samsung and One UI also gives you Good Lock, which allows you to go even deeper and customize your phone even more. And in terms of update policies, this is what we like to see. Samsung is tied with Google when it comes to that, and it is offering 7 years of updates on its latest high-end phones. And even if you don't use the 7 years of updates, it's really nice to know that it is there. One of the reasons that Samsung misses out on that top spot, and you'll have noticed this through the list, it's bloatware. We hate it, and Samsung gives you a fair bit. It's seriously hard to look past the sheer variety of pre-installed Samsung apps, Microsoft apps, and just third-party bloatware, which it's just not necessary. And the reason it's sat at number 2 is that not even Google can rival Samsung with the amount of features it sticks into One UI. And of course, sat at number 1 is the Google Pixel UI. The Pixel UI has been one of the best Android skins in the game for a long time, and it borrows from stock Android's look and feel while offering some truly exciting features. You have features like call screen and my all-time favorite feature, which is now playing, which just passively recognizes music around you. I love this. Then look at some more recent additions: best take photo mode, using your phone as a PC webcam, and web page summaries. One downside though to Pixel's UI is that features like call screening aren't available everywhere in the world. Another point at Pixel's UI being at number 1 is that there's virtually no bloatware, unlike Samsung, Xiaomi, and almost anyone else on the list. Perhaps the only other issue we have here is that Google's own Android skin lags behind Samsung's One UI when it comes to the foldable specific capabilities. However, this might change with the newer Pixel Fold. Google of course offers 7 years of major updates, and that is exactly what we want to see on top-end flagship phones. So this is why Google Pixel's UI overall sits at number 1 on the list. I'm sure a few of you will disagree with where we've ranked a few of these Android skins on the list, so let me know where you would rank them in the comments below. Before you head off, make sure you subscribe, and if you do that, then I shall see you in the next video.